Hello everybody and welcome to this deep dive into Starfield here on the Triple S League. My name is Ash. I'm here with you as always. I've got, of course, Moontag and Subsidian here as well. Like I said, we're doing a deep dive into Starfield. We're going to try to go deep and not broad. I mean, we are going to cover a number of topics. We're going to cover a little bit about the lore, but mostly we're going to talk about the RPG elements of the game. We're going to talk about the engine and the tech, because I know a lot of people have questions about that and suspicions about that. And then we're going to talk about the delay, the implications of the delay. Is this really going to be the next Cyberpunk, or would it have been the next Cyberpunk if it had stuck with their November of 2022 release date? We'll go into all of that. It's not an everything we know about Starfield kind of a thing. The intention here is to go a little deeper into what's going on behind the scenes. We're actually going to break this into 3 videos since the conversation went on longer than expected, so be sure to subscribe to catch all of those, plus tons more content, and look for the Starfield news and updates playlist right here on the Triple S League channel. Starfield, upcoming game from Bethesda, as I'm sure many of you know, but if you're not aware, it is a spacefaring RPG that they're going to be putting out. It's been delayed now into 2023. It was originally scheduled to come out in November of this year, but it is the beginning of humanity's final journey. That is the premise of the game, set in the year 2330 in an area of our solar system called the Settled Systems, and the Settled Systems is not far out from our own solar system, so they've aimed for a realistic future. One of the devs dubbed it NASA Punk because they've tried to base the tech, like the fictional tech in the game world, off of real tech from like NASA and SpaceX and stuff like that. So there's our own solar system, our current solar system, like where we're actually living now in real life, might actually be part of this Settled Systems, and so there may be some exploration of planets within our own solar system. That is kind of a speculative deduction, but that very well may be something that takes place in the game. There's lots of factions, there's lots of lore that they've developed for this game. The lore goes very deep, and I was going to talk about some of the corporations and factions and stuff, but maybe let's put that aside for the moment and talk about some of the bigger questions, such as, is this going to be a deep RPG? Is this going to be a real RPG like many of us have been craving from Bethesda for years, if not decades now? You know, we've had the Starfield and the Fallout 4 and then the 76, all seemingly step down a notch on the RPG scale as they've progressed through. So what about Starfield then? Are we going to see a return to real hardcore RPG mechanics?
They're going to have a lot more character options than we're used to seeing. I'll let Moon talk a little bit about that. But the other thing that we're going to be seeing is we're going to see a return to form as far as difficulty. I think we're going to have increased difficulty, and that this is because difficulty modes have always been really, really popular with Bethesda games. They were mostly created by fans who were like, this trying to kill everything on super hard mode is a cakewalk. I want something harder. I've talked about the difficulty mods that I've used in the past, where like aiming always takes you into a first person. If you have hair, your hair gets in the way. If you have your helmet on, your helmet gets in the way of your vision. Stuff like that, which I think is really next gen, like an evolution on the first person system, in combination with like head tracking, in combination with headsets and stuff like that. I think the technology is set to grow and experience a change, and I like those kinds of things. And those things are some of those things have been added post into both Skyrim and Fallout. Their official remakes have included more difficult versions, and Fallout 4 came with it straight up. So they've really been embracing this difficulty thing that is an older flair that has been coming back. And so we see that Bethesda's at least staying somewhat concurrent, or attempting to stay somewhat concurrent with what their current users are doing and looking for. So
Right.
that's kind of a good thing.
That's with regard to sort of a survival element. But let's talk about the actual RPG stuff. So what are we expecting to see as far as core RPG mechanics? For example, are they going to be bringing back traits and skills, or the kinds of things that you'd find in the original Fallout games, or those hardcore RPGs that we thought Cyberpunk was going to be?
Yeah, well, they said that they're including traits, and like you can pick backgrounds for your character creation, right? And I'm like, really cool, because like they went through like the different factions that there are. I think one of the ones is Crimson Pirates is one of the ones you may be able to join.
Yeah, the Crimson Fleet.
All the factions are probably most likely joinable. They've alluded to that a few times. There's the United Colonies. There's the House of Varun, which is a religious cult that worships squirrels. Then there's no, I'm kidding. Then there's the Crimson Fleet. Then there's the Crimson Fleet, which is a bunch of pirates. Then you've got the Industrials. It's a megacorp. Raijin, something like that.
Industries.
Yeah, and then you got the Freestar Collective, which is basically like I'm hoping and I'm thinking like this is going to be my Firefly, like come true, dream come true, right? Where it's like it's because it's a very space western type thing. It's frontier. Everybody's just like,
it is actually
very libertarian.
That's the Freestar Collective is, I believe, sort of the more libertarian of the large factions, and then the United Colonies, I believe, is more of a republic. But one of the devs said it's like a Han Solo simulator. So if that's accurate, and again, we're here, this is from someone on the inside, and we've learned the hard way that you can't always take those types of things at face value when you're hearing from somebody who's actually working on the game. But I mean, that sounds amazing. If that's what it is, it sounds like the type of sci-fi game that I've been hoping for ages. And if it's also again combined,
we're getting stats. We're getting we're getting stats and systems that were more commonplace years and years ago. Like a lot of people forget that Bethesda did do a lot of really hardcore RPGs back in the day, and they have progressively become more COD, like, I guess you could say, right? Like it's just that
they've simplified things.
It went from spend 5 hours crafting your character, setting stats and traits and skills and abilities in some of the previous Elder Scrolls games, and it just gradually evolved into what you have in Skyrim, which is you just customize the look of your character, then you grab a sword and you just start swinging.
That's fantastic to hear that some of those old systems are likely coming back in this game. So anything else? So we talked about traits. What else can we expect?
Well, I mean, we haven't really talked about traits.
Well, it was mentioned, but yeah, go ahead.
So traits are going to be negative things that
Buffs
give you a negative
debuffs.
it's going to give you a buff and a debuff essentially at the same time, and then you're going to be able to use that to kind of further craft your character. Then there's going to be the abilities and the backgrounds, which are really going to set your direction basically, as far as what kind of person you are currently and were in the past, and that's going to affect things hopefully throughout the game. Like we had the life paths in CDPR's Cyberpunk, and it was more or less a letdown. It was great in the first hour, but then that was it.
They had cool stories, but yeah, like how often did it really affect the choices and the dialogues that you engaged in later on? It was barely there.
Exactly. It was very, very bland.
Yeah. So then there's going to be more and more stuff when it comes to the defining your character, because that's what so much of, like, if you look at all of the massive overhauls to Skyrim and Fallout, most of them focus around most of the most popular ones. I think in Skyrim it's the most popular one, makes the game as like far more role play than it was previously.
It would be crazy of them not to look at what the most popular mods are for their previous games and say, clearly, people want more of that, so let's give it to them.
Right? That and just like getting input from the community in general, right? Instead of like going off of like some consultant or whoever.
Right.
Like,
now,
driving the train before.
That's true, although, you know, Bethesda is notoriously tight-lipped as far as what... you know, revealing stuff about the games beforehand, you know, if they don't want something to get out, it typically doesn't. They're kind of, Sibes referred to them as Fort Knox before. But again, there's still tons of feedback out there. There's tons of people telling them, this is what we don't like, this is what we want, this is what was in your previous games that we liked. And
we know that they watch modding very closely. They look at the most demanded, most requested content as far as mods. They look at the most common, the most requested systems and infrastructure changes within the modding community, and they have just practically ignored them completely. They watch them very closely, but they don't actually copy them. And that's actually bad for the game, because so many times there's this huge demand for stuff, and it takes them, you know, it took them almost a decade to add in these survival mechanics into Skyrim, and it's like, why, when that's your number one requested thing?
So they got there eventually, though, and hopefully
they're getting there. So I hope that they've taken all of the top like 100 mods in Skyrim and Fallout, and they basically incorporated as much of those mods into their system as humanly possible from the get-go. Because if you do that, then a lot of this stuff will just be so much more easier to do and easier to handle, and will just make everything better as far as modding the game goes.
We haven't seen the character creator yet, have we?
I don't think so. No, I didn't.
That may be something we'll see in a couple of weeks at the Bethesda Xbox Showcase, which we will co-stream live here on the Triple S League. But yeah, like they've been very selective in what they're revealing. They've revealed a lot of stuff about the world, but we haven't really seen too many characters.
There's been like some models, and actually, one of the companion-like characters I saw, the Vasco, or whatever that robot guy.
Robot. There's a lot of different variants of them too. The robots are there's going to be a ton of different like attachments or upgrades that you put on them, or different robots that you might be able to recruit. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
And you know what? They've done really well with the robot companions in the Fallout games, and so I'm excited to see what they do with that. The robots in Fallout are a delight. All right, so when we're talking about these areas where we think, in terms of at least the game's design and RPG elements and the, you know, backgrounds and stuff especially, I can't help but be reminded of Cyberpunk 2077 and a lot of what we were promised there. How do we know that it's not going to be the same thing all over again?
Well, for the first thing is we haven't gotten any promises yet. Like nothing concrete. All we've gotten is like vague things. It's like, you're gonna have fun exploring the world and all the worlds and the universe. It's like,
very true.
All right, what does that mean? Does that mean, you know, what's the specifics on that, right? And that was where CDPR really screwed up, because they had a lot of this stuff and they put out info from their early alpha builds of a previous build. They put that stuff out there, going, oh yeah, we're gonna have this, and you know, because again, we saw this stuff. We saw the thing from pre 2015, then we saw the thing, you know, 2015, then post 2015, and then just every year there was like new goals, new stuff being added. They had these unique, interesting systems, and then the systems all freaking vanished. You know, but then some of them were still there, but then there wasn't other ones. Like there was a partial third-person system still in the game. Then there was also the wall running system was still in the game. Then there was the ability to change out your apartment to like do just like all this stuff that got cut and left, that like 3/4, 1/4, 1/5 baked into the system, and it was just left there. And at no point did they like say, maybe we should just like pick our favorites and try and like see what we can do with that, get the game functional, and then we can add stuff to it after that. And I really do think that's the better way of creating this stuff. And I think that Bethesda has a foot up here with this new engine, not new engine, but the revised engine that they have right now, because I think they'll be able to do way more things like that, where they build out a core game experience and then they just add stuff to it.
Did you enjoy that video? Let us know by slamming that like button and leaving a comment below. And if you really liked it, consider joining the Triple S Legion by joining our online community, supporting us on Patreon, or checking out the merch store. Subscribe for tons more guides and other fun videos. And for insightful gaming news content, check out our sister channel, Triple S Podcast.
What is it, Ray?